They said, "We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us." The Morgan Global Journalism Review is a quarterly publication. There are only two journalism reviews produced in higher education in the United States. In all of the United States, all of the many thousands of colleges and universities, just two. One at Morgan and the other at Columbia University. So we're rolling in some very tall cotton with the work that we do here. And we're going to share this with you. Uh, we're going to show you some pieces of the book, and I'm going to talk about the process of how we're going to get through today because, we try to book enough time to get through this, but we know that our clocks sometimes are kind of not set correctly. So we say we're going to start at 4 and we don't get started until 4:15, 4:20, 4:25, but we're going to get through this. And in a few minutes now, in 15 minutes, Dr. K will come over from her radio show. She's on the air now, live in our studio, and she will transfer herself here at 5 o'clock and will do an hour of her show, the last hour from this studio. And she'll be talking to some of the writers involved in this publication, and then subsequently, she'll be talking to you, and you'll have a chance to speak back to her. So we want to share with you some things about our book, the publication we're about to produce. This year is the 250th anniversary of the founding, as you know, of the United States. And all across this country right now, all kinds of things are happening. There's a freedom plane, and the freedom plane is going from state to state with an exhibit of artifacts from the history of this country. And they also have a freedom train, and the freedom train is replicating the work of the freedom train that came across this country way back in 1976. They are freedom trucks. Yes, they literally are freedom trucks. I'm not making this up. And these trucks also will do something similar to what I've just said. And what we know, because of the attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion, what we know because of the attacks that we saw on the 1619 Project, Nicole Hannah Jones's book, there's a pullback in this nation and sadly in many higher education institutions in terms of talking about the contributions made by people of African descent to this nation. So we decided in this issue, this special issue that you see the cover of on the screen there, in this special issue of our book, we're going to look at America's 250 years from a black perspective. We call it a black retrospective. We're looking back. You may notice that we have our own Mount Rushmore on the cover. Uh, I don't see Thomas Jefferson there. Theodore Roosevelt's not there, is he? Can you see him? No, Abe Lincoln's not there either. Okay, so what we have on the cover of our Mount Rushmore are people who we think you should know about and who would invite you into our publication to see and read about other people. The first image you see, if you're looking at the far left hand side of that publication, is a guy named Robert Hemings. Most people don't know who he is. I'll say Sally Hemings' brother, and most people may still not know who he is. But when Thomas Jefferson wrote the words, "All men are created equal," at that very moment, Robert Hemings stood next to him. Robert Hemings literally washed his clothes, washed his body, made his food, made his bed, provided him all the comforts of life. And then when Thomas Jefferson went to bed, Robert Hemings laid on the floor next to him and slept. Robert Hemings was his slave. So we have on our Mount Rushmore Robert Hemings. Next to him is Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass is the most photographed person in America during the 19th century, the most photographed person in the nation. Never once did he smile. You can't find a picture of him smiling because he knew there wasn't a whole lot to smile about. We have Frederick Douglass on our cover. I love Jessie Farcett. She's in the middle there. People, who is that? Wayne Dawkins Wayne Dawkins from Hampton University. From Hampton University, professor at Hampton University. And Wayne has some stories. We're not going to tell that story you told me earlier about Jesse Fawcett and W.E.B. Du Bois. Because if you know W.E.B. Du Bois, there are a lot of W.E.B. Du Bois and women's stories. But Jesse Fawcett's claim to fame is that from 1919 to 1926, she was the literary editor of the Crisis magazine. The Crisis magazine was the publication of the NAACP, still is. But in 1919, it became more than a political vehicle for commentary. She became its literary agent, its editor, and she discovered Langston Hughes and Zora Neale Hurston and Jean Toomer and Countee Cullen. Yet do I marvel at this curious thing to make a poet black and bid him sing, Countee Cullen. And she discovered all of these people, and she became known as the godmother of the Harlem Renaissance. The Harlem Renaissance, this great literary, musical, artistic eruption that took place in this country. She was the mother who gave birth to it. Rosa Parks next to her, and this little young man, Barack, as our current president likes to say, Barack Hussein Obama, the first black president of the United States. I know some of y'all old enough to think it was Bill Clinton, but 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 we have him in the book, and we have many more. We divided the 250 years into five 50-year blocks of time, and we asked five different writers to write about those sections. And so you see the first section there was written by, I guess that's Dr. Powell, Aisha Powell. She'll be joining us shortly. If we can jump forward a little bit to the next block of time. Oh, you know, she is such. A, you got to be careful what you say about people in the academy. But doesn't she look like somebody's student? But no, she is a very distinguished and capable member of our faculty, and we're very proud to have her here, a graduate of the Columbia J School, the Columbia Graduate School of Journalism at Howard University. We don't hold that against her. We don't hold the Howard thing against her. But we love that she's on our faculty, as do our students. Norris West, who for many years wrote for the Baltimore Sun as a reporter, and then later as a editorial writer, and then even after that, he worked in communications for the Annie E. Casey Foundation, took on the assignment of writing about the second 50-year block of time. And just by the way, Norris is not here with us, but we're going to show you a short video clip in which he talks about his contribution. And the person you see pictured there, this is why it's so important that we do what we're doing with this publication. The person you see pictured there is the president of Mexico, an Afro Mexican president who in 1826 ended slavery in Mexico. So before slavery was ended in this country in 1865, in 1826, he ended slavery in Mexico. And so while we're talking about that, we're talking about the 250-year history of the United States, it had a ripple effect on Texas and the revolution that took place in Texas to pull Texas away from Mexico. That didn't happen until after he stopped slavery. And then the whites who had gone to that portion of Mexico with their slaves decided they needed independence and freedom. Let's go into the next one. I'll just very quickly get there. Y'all don't know Al Wilson, and it's good, and it's probably good that you don't. But Al is my oldest living friend. I remember when I was a little kid, Al used to babysit me because Al was probably about 15 years older than I am. He's an old guy. Uh, the third block of time that we have in our book is one that I wrote about. We titled it Jim Crow, Black Codes, and Baseball. And it covers a period from 1876, the great election that took place that year, the Hayes-Tilden election that ended Reconstruction and brought about the beginning of the black codes that lasted for over a century. So I write about that period of time. And at the end of my piece, I tell the story that you'll never read anywhere else this year as people talk about the history of the United States. I tell the story of the coming together of some black folks and some white folks in Wichita Falls, Kansas. It's a good story. It's a story about how the Ku Klux Klan clavering played a baseball game against a Negro League baseball team. And I'll leave it to you to read the fine print to see how that turned out. Okay, and the next piece, we can flip up to the next piece. Oh, it's there. Okay. All right, that's the piece. Pardon? Oh, it's behind me too. That helps. I love the title of this piece. You know, one of the things I got to do as editor is to write the headline for each piece. And you have to read the whole piece and try to understand what the writer was saying, and then pull something out of it that you hope will grip the attention of a reader. A white man's war, a black man's fight. This is the period of time from 1926 to 1975. And that quote came near the end of that 50-year period, and it came from Martin Luther King. He was talking about the Vietnam War. And at the point that he uttered those words, the, uh, the casualty rate among blacks who were fighting in the Vietnam War was astronomical, much higher than the casualty rate among others. At the end of the war, it got closer. But at that point, blacks were being killed and wounded in astronomical numbers in the Vietnam War. And so that's one part of it. But you see, that's not a soldier in the bottom of the picture. That's a runner. And so as America tells you the story of this 250-year period, they won't tell you this story. They'll tell you about Jesse Owens because that's who's pictured there. But this is after the Berlin Olympics. After he won those gold medals, he came home a great hero because he beat Nazi Germany's best athletes. But when he came back home to Jim Crow and the same black codes and the racism that was there. And no longer were they celebrating his defeat of Nazis and the German athletes. So he came home and he couldn't find a decent job, couldn't make a decent living. And so he had to resort to racing horses. Our great black Olympic champion was reduced to racing horses to make a living. And we tell you that story because we're giving you the history of 250 years from a black perspective. And there ought to be one more. There is. And this is a piece written by Tanya Weathersby. She's not here today, but we have a video clip of her talking about her piece as well. She begins her piece with a quote from Richard Pryor. Can y'all see that? The quote comes out of a Grammy Award. You know that, don't you? What's the name of the album? Bicentennial. Does it just say Bicentennial? Is that the name of the album that won him a Grammy that year? Bicentennial Nigger. That's what he wrote about, and he talked about our condition from the perspective of a comedian, a comic. And when that album came out, on the day that it was released, the Freedom Train, I told you there was another Freedom Train, the Freedom Train was in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And we found newspaper clippings that told us that on that day, very few people showed up to see the Freedom Train. It didn't turn out. Big beach town, but folks didn't turn out. And it didn't turn out because the population was majority black. And the exhibit didn't have much of interest there. And so we try to continue to make the story. We're not trying to denigrate or in any way talk, as they say, talk bad about our nation and the way our nation has looked at these events. Look at Ms. Pollard coming in here. showing off her bag. I told you, don't let people see those bags until, Justina, I said, don't let people see those bags. Dr. K, that's your producer. That's your seat. I asked her, do not let people see those bags until, but you might as well show it to, don't, not now. They want to see it now. So at the end of this program, every one of you will receive one of those bags. It's a tote bag, and the front of that tote bag, if you didn't notice, actually has our black Mount Rushmore on the front. Take that to the beach this summer. Yeah. Y'all go to Afram, y'all gonna be spectacular with that, right? Okay. Uh, so we're twisting our program just a little bit. Dr. K, I know you're getting your mic on, but I want to say something because I know we're going to lose someone. Um, there's so much that we've done, as I said before, here at Morgan in our Center for New Media through our publication, the Morgan Global Journalism Review. And one of the things will recall, we went to Cuba and we were concerned about the banning of books. You would be surprised how many books are banned in this country every year. Literally thousands of books are banned in this country every year. And one of those books is The Wreck of the Henrietta Marie, written by Michael Cotman. And I want to show you, if we can cue that up. I want to show you a piece that we did for our documentary that with Michael Cotman to talk about this book. Banning black books, silencing black voices. Now turn to a 300-year-old saga involving the millions of African people who crossed the ocean, the Western Hemisphere, and worked until they died. I'm Randall Pinkston. I'm the Deputy Director of the Center for New Media at the School of Global Journalism and Communication at Morgan State University. And I am pleased to present Professor Michael Cotman. He's going to talk about being an author and a scuba diver and a researcher and a reporter. What Michael did with those skills was to produce a book, The Wreck of the Henrietta Marie. In 1699, the Henrietta Marie was one of many, many ships crossing the Atlantic with captive Africans. And in 1999, you published a book.
The Henrietta Marie had two slaving experiences carrying our people into slavery. One was 1698, one was 1699. It sank in 1700 off the coast of Key West, Florida. It is the only slave ship that we know of that's scientifically documented, where 20,000 artifacts have been recovered. The largest collection of slave ship shackles ever found on one site, 100 pair, including small shackles designed for children.
About a year ago, you discover that this book is being banned.
I received a call from a librarian in West Palm Beach, and she told me that your book has been withdrawn from the library in Florida. And so weeks later, I'm receiving other books in the mail from Fayetteville, North Carolina, from Wyoming, Cheyenne, Wyoming, from Alabama, saying my book is no longer accepted. They used the words again, withdrawn. So I thought about that when I'm thinking about deleted. My book's deleted. My book's being withdrawn. My book's being rejected. That means that our history is being rejected. Our history is being withdrawn. Our history is being deleted. The book I used to read that my father gave me to read when I was a kid, James Baldwin. James Baldwin's books are banned in public libraries throughout this country. So the books that I read from James Baldwin as a kid, they can't read today. And they can't read your book. And they can't read my book. And I think back and say, well, what if those Baldwin books were banned? What if the books that my father was pulling off the bookshelf in those Detroit public libraries for me to read weren't there? I would not be here right now telling you this story.
Michael Cottman's story, like the works of so many other Black writers in the American hemisphere, is a form of literary resistance. Resistance that counters those who want to erase the memory of the enslavement of millions of people of African descent throughout this continent. From Buenos Aires to Boston, from Mexico City to Nova Scotia.
KY's Whitehead. We are live on location. There is an audience here. I'll give them a chance to speak up. We're excited about being here today and being able to talk through America at 250. If you did not get your ticket to join us, you are missing out on something very exciting. To talk about how do we talk about American history from a Black perspective? How do we make the argument very clear that Black history is American history? And if you want to tell the story of this country, you can tell it through what we have experienced and what we're going through. We're at a unique moment now as we talk about 250 because the UN is getting ready to vote to determine whether or not the transatlantic slave trade is the gravest act against humanity. I absolutely agree with that. And they said we should be talking about a class action lawsuit. If you know me, you know how I feel about running my change for what you have done in this country. We're going to talk about what does it mean to look at America at 250 today. I want to ask to join me up here for this conversation, Benjamin Davis, the chairman of the Department of Multimedia Journalism. Here he comes at Morgan State University. I'm excited to have you here. And then we're also going to be joined by Dr. Aisha Powell, Assistant Professor in the Department of Strategic Communication here at Morgan State University. There you are. No problem. We're excited to have both of them up here. And what we're going to talk about, folks, is we're going to talk about the pieces that they contributed to this amazing review. So when we look at the way it was put together, and in the second half, we're going to talk to Dean Emeritus Dwayne Wickham, putting America in 50-year increments to tell our story. And so, Dr. Powell, I'll start with you. Because your piece, I see that smile on your face, your piece opens up what we're talking about. And it's called, in front of me here, A Government for White Men Only, 1776 to 1825. Can you really frame this piece for us? Since when people talk about that it's the birth of America, really, it's the release of the Declaration of Independence. So take us through that.
Okay, well, this piece was really interesting because I learned a lot about the history of America while I was writing it. And it started in 1776, this Declaration of Independence. So Thomas Jefferson is in Philadelphia. And I described the environment. Philadelphia was really hot. It was very musty is one of the words that was used. So it smelled bad. And he's just working really hard to write the draft for this document. And obviously in history books, they talk about his influence, his work, but they don't talk about the silent people who were in the room with him or the forgotten people, which were African Americans, and so specifically Robert Hemings. And so he was a relative to Sally Hemings, which is Thomas Jefferson's, one of his enslaved Africans who he had an intimate relationship with. And so during this time, he was bathing Thomas Jefferson. He was tending to him. He was excited to be in Philadelphia traveling. He was making sure he had water, making sure he ate, making sure he looked nice. And so in traditional history books, all we know is Thomas Jefferson's writing this document on his own without help, but Robert Hemings was there the entire time. And then when they went back to the house that they were staying at, he slept in the slave quarters of the house or on the floor. And so this piece kind of contextualizes that from inception, African Americans, Black people were not welcomed in the United States. They're not acknowledged. They're always seen as secondary. And then in the Constitution, as he's writing about all men in the United States, the silent text is the exclusion of Black people. So all men means all white men. And do you want me to continue about?
No, this
okay.
This is excellent because I'm fascinated by this. And just to kind of peel it back a little bit more, Robert Hemings, folks, was trained as a chef. And so the reason why Jefferson took Hemings to France with him is he wanted him to learn to cook in a particular way to bring this back home to be able to serve him. And Sally Hemings, we know, was 13 going on 14 when this older man forced himself on her. And she, of course, ended up having 4 children. But it was Robert Hemings who convinced Sally Hemings to come back home because she was in France and she could have gone and claimed her freedom. But she's a 13 to 14-year-old girl. Now she's pregnant by this older white man who forced himself because she was a child. I want to ask you one more question before I bring in the other professor. When we start talking about the ways in which freedom happened on the fringes. So Robert Hemings is here. So he is in the room when this is happening. He's also there when Thomas Jefferson is making changes because Thomas Jefferson, of course, had the second draft of the Declaration of Independence. The first draft talked about holding the king accountable and saying everyone who supported the king should be held accountable as well. So if you benefited from this position, you should be held accountable as well. Can you talk about the ways in which Black people during this time, 1776 up to 1825, when they really cemented American slavery, how Black folks were able to carve out moments of freedom during this very oppressive time when we had the highest number of Black folks dropping dead because of the work being done?
So this is a great question. In this piece, I learned, well, I always knew that Black people were resilient, but writing during this time, they did this in subversive ways and very obvious ways. One of the ways they did was joining the military, whether that be on the American or on the British side, because there was a promise of freedom at the end. And they also want to show their valor, like if they're willing to put their life on the line, maybe America or the people in power will see them as something worthy, as an equal. And that treads to today. We live in a society where a lot of people might pivot to go to the army or military to show that they belong here, show that they'll fight for this country. And then this country consistently shows them that no matter what you do, you will never be equal. And they were doing that during this time. So it's kind of a consistent trend. Additionally, creating like Black societies. So these were organized fraternities, organized like fellowship, even using the church where they can get together, and they were drafting their own bylaws, their own constitution, kind of creating a sub-society outside of mainstream society so that they can exist and govern and petition to the American Congress and legislature that they belong in the United States, and that if the Constitution says all men are created equal, that Black people are included in that. And so there was a lot of petitions from like the Free Black Society in Philadelphia and other organizations during this time that kept pushing to Congress, sending letters, petitions for them to see that they were of value. And we do that today. The NAACP consistently has done that today. Anytime there's social justice conversations, there's letters or petitions going out. Morgan State speaks out. Our president will put out a press release. Sorry, that's a little distracting. When things are happening. And so we've always resisted. Our oppression by those in power and found ways to have our own voice. Even if it didn't give us the results that we wanted, we still kind of persisted on.
Well, we're going to come back to that since Robert Hemings is on our Mount Rushmore. And I want to pull in Benjamin Davis and your piece, which is my favorite year because it's 1926 to 1975, A White Man's War, a Black Man's Fight. Now, what's interesting with 1926, I have to say, because that's the year, of course, that Dr. Carter G. Woodson launched Negro History Week. So it was during that period of time that Black folks were beginning to have these commemorations kind of in a more structured way within our communities. But can you talk a bit and kind of pull this piece apart for us, since it really connects quite a bit with a white man's war and a black man's fight? Because that's what we know. We heard that with Lincoln during the Civil War.
Right. This was during the American Progressive era, when intellectualism was making a comeback, more or less. And African Americans, they were under the W.E.B. Du Bois intellectual umbrella, the Garvey intellectual umbrella, and they were saying, you have promised us things, you have written promises, you have to deliver on them. And if you don't deliver on them on your own, we have strategies for getting them back. And people like A. Philip Randolph, he led
the Sleeping Car Porters.
Sleeping Car Porter Union. He developed strategies that took an economic approach to getting change, and he managed to get change for American soldiers, American federal workers, by going directly to the President of the United States, Roosevelt, and eventually Truman. I wouldn't say that he blackmailed them, but he basically said, we can strike. Right. And using those type of economic tools, he was contributing to a marathon, and the civil rights movement was composed of marathoners. And then you had sprinters, and I'll put Jesse Owens, even though he was a sprinter, he's in the marathon group of civil rights fighters. The ones who were sprinters were the Black Panthers and SNCC. They were saying, wait, we have to move faster. And they managed to get the attention of the federal government in a different type of way. But they were effective. They were pioneers, the sprinters, the Black Panthers were pioneers in the sense of being a service organization. People don't think of them as a service organization, but they were truly a service organization. They were forerunner to Reverend Jesse Jackson's Operation Push in terms of child care. They were the ones that were saying we have to take care of our own children, we have to feed our own children, we have to educate our own children, educate our communities. But more importantly, they said we're going to defend ourselves. And the laws were in their favor. So they could go out and buy guns, and perfectly, they weren't breaking any laws. It wasn't illegal until they started carrying their guns around. But the sprinters, like the Panthers, were very instrumental in terms of getting things done. The marathoners, like Martin Luther King, was a marathoner. He'll take the slow approach, the nonviolent approach. Both important roles in terms of making changes that had to be delivered upon. They were all saying the same thing. You promised us something, it's time to deliver on it. And some acknowledged that it would be slower, others said, no, it has to come faster.
Can you talk a little bit about, during this time period, 26 to 75, when we look at civil rights legislation, we can see kind of at the end of that period, what was the result of the work that was done? And I'm thinking, of course, the 1964 Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act of 1965, Fair Housing Act of 1968, before we even get to the mass assassinations that were taking place kind of as we move to the end of 75. Talk a bit about that, because how does that fit into your marathon idea that maybe that was the final line for people that we were trying to get to?
In some ways, it was the final, and it was the beginning of African-American influence globally. The Civil Rights Act actually freed up immigration to this country. Many more people came here as a result of activities that African Americans started. We always took a global perspective internally. In the Olympics, we knew that when we came home, we weren't respected, but overseas we were respected. Our musicians, just like the musicians today, but our musicians, Cab Calloway, Ella Fitzgerald, they all had international influence. We knew that they knew that they were influential overseas, but here the promise was not being delivered. I think in the bigger sense, we knew that there was a continuum that had to somehow be passed on to a next generation, another generation, and not lose the flavor of its original ideas, its original thoughts, which is that we have to be recognized domestically as we are recognized overseas, whether we be overseas in a uniform or overseas in front of a piano. Basically, our own country is not recognizing us. The sprinters, the Panthers, the guys I like to keep going back to, SNCC, those guys, they were intent on getting recognized as well, but at a faster pace.
Now, I want to have you hold on to the mic one more moment, and Dr. Powell, I'm going to come back to you. But first, I want to ask you, because if we look at the end of this kind of 50-year block that you're working with, I mean, we see it marked by really two things. One is the amount of violence that we were dealing with. And I believe, like Dr. King, that a riot is the language of the unheard.
Yeah.
And so we saw a lot of that. But it was also marked by these assassinations. Eggs, King, Medgar Evers, all in the late 60s, leading into the 70s. Now you're talking about moving into the 1970s without the leaders that had marked us from like 1955 on out. So can you talk about how that shifted before we go into the next 50-year block, that's what capped us?
To the violence. A. Philip Randolph and W.E.B. Du Bois, they spoke a language that institutional America could speak. And the Panthers, those who advocated violence to some degree, they spoke a language that America could identify with as well, because we are a violent country. We always have been. That's why they felt that it was important to speak a language of guns, of violence, to show guns and violence, because Americans, the American establishment, recognize it. Whether they would admit to it or not, they recognize it. They also had to deal with their own version of Jim Crow. Jim Crow was not institutional anymore by that period, but it was within the FBI and within the Federal Housing Administration and the GI loan program. They had different versions of Jim Crow that would hold African Americans back. But I think that the idea that being radical, being violent, was one way of getting your voice heard to an establishment that tried to ignore you.
Then we'll take it back to you, Dr. Powell, because that takes us back. We're back in the 1776 to 1825, a government for white men only. Because when we think about the violence that happened during your 50-year block, we saw a lot of it starting back here. What did it mean to rise up within your community, but also to fight for citizenship? Because in 1776, we had a very large free black community as well. I'm thinking about James Fortin in Philadelphia, Sarah Parker Ramon up in Massachusetts. Like, you had black folks traveling, raising money, and working outside this particular system to establish their own communities. Can you talk a little bit about some of the tensions that existed really within four communities, right? So you had kind of the white community, then you had the enslaved community, and then you had the free black community, and then you had the indigenous community.
Well, I will say that there was always kind of a fear that within your safety, your black community, that it would be violated, it would be burned down, you would be mistaken or accused of being a fugitive slave and re-enslaved. And that just persisted throughout. Also just inter-community like conflicts or interracial group conflicts that could exist. And that just remained throughout this 50-year period. And one of the things I spoke about in my section was about the Haitian Revolution. And I'm Haitian, so I was familiar with it. But the fact that the enslaved Haitians successfully revolted through the leadership of Toussaint Louverture created more fear in white Americans that black enslaved Africans could revolt. And then they were even more violent, even more restrictive, because they didn't want them to follow that example of the Haitians. And it was kind of like an effervescent, we have to restrict them even more. We have to have harsher punishments for them. And then enslaved Africans in the United States were fearful of that. And so maybe in times where they would have tried to revolt or speak up, and obviously there was revolts happening, they didn't. Or they would try to steer away from people who were more, wanted rebellion, wanted to be more radical because they were afraid of their lives. And so even in the existence of Black freedom in the United States, we're never free because there's systemic racism. There's also that fear of being caught, of being accused of something you're not doing, of having a violent attack. And if you respond back, you get the harsher punishment. And so our freedom has always just been like confined through white supremacy.
And so I'll come to you for the last question here as we wrap this up. A white man's war, a black man's fight. Can you talk a little bit coming out of 1975? Were there any pivotal moments that really gave us a glimpse of what would happen next?
What would be coming next? Well, media had a lot to do with it, and I believe African Americans were feeling sort of alpha. And you can say alpha male, but there weren't alpha males without alpha females by their side. They were feeling a bit alpha. They used the media, they used their celebrity to work with them in terms of getting people's attention. And Muhammad Ali was a prime example of saying things with a straight back, eye looking straight ahead, telling the truth, speaking the truth to power. And you really couldn't argue with him because he was right. Martin Luther King, the same way, but Malcolm X spoke a certain language through the media that people could identify with as well. Our music was doing the same thing. Marvin Gaye was producing songs, people were writing music that spoke directly to the oppression that we were going to escape. And we were basically saying, no, we're not going away, we're not going anywhere. There will be more of us. So at some point you're going to have to give in, but we will not stop. And I think that's probably one of the most, I should say, fulfilling things that I looked at in terms of what was happening during that time, that they were sending a message to the country that there's more to come, and they did come soon.
And I'll come back to you, Dr. Powell, for your last question here. So coming at the end of your piece, are there one or two moments that you would point out and say, you know, this gives us a sense of where we're going? Because that's kind of where we began at the start of this experiment.
Unfortunately, it's a little pessimistic, but towards the end of my piece, it ends in the Battle of Baltimore, which is here, and how the United States' army overcame the British Army in the Battle of Baltimore. And at the end, they put up the American flag, and Scott Key, I think that's his full name.
Francis Scott Key.
Francis Scott Key, thank you.
Jumping in. Francis Scott Key. Bunch of Baltimore people here.
Historian.
He wrote the Star-Spangled Banner, and to signify that scene of the American flag flowing in the wind through the battle. And even in that moment, there was another hidden Black figure. I don't remember her name. The woman who was, they commissioned her to create that large American flag.
The one that we always talk about.
Yes. And she had an enslaved young woman with her sewing the American flag.
Which they have an amazing painting for that, for Betsy Ross, and they have the woman on the floor working with her.
Yes. And so she's once again not credited in like mainstream textbooks and when they talk about this instance.
Now I have to step in. I'm so sorry. We're going to commercial, folks. I'm very excited. Thank you so much, Benjamin Davis, Chairman of the Department of Multimedia Journalism, Dr. Aisha Powell, Assistant Professor, Department of Strategic Communication. Get the review. Take a look at their pieces. Stay with us more after the break. Dean Emeritus Dwayne Wickham.
Thank you, Doc. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. That was really good. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions.
Was I sitting there?
Take this off?
Yeah, they'll take it off. Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
Take it off.
How you doing?
Oh, good.
You like this, huh?
Oh,
Yeah, this is such a great idea.
Yeah, you should. It was really
We have so much history, and no one's going to bury it. No one's going to bury
I
it.
have to see. Yeah. I call myself a civil rights child because I was born doing civil rights. So all of this,
Yes, sir.
I like.
Yeah, we know this. We know this. Though.
Yes.
I think you have a second one too. Okay. So have they gotten this yet?
No. So at the end of would you give me a bag and give me a bag and one of the yes. See, I got
Three piece. Thank you for showing it. Yes.
no.
I was going to.
You wanted to say something about his book? Okay, yeah.
So we'll pull you up. Yeah. Oh, did you want to put Dean Jones? What did you
He wants to talk about that book.
Okay. So we'll get you. We're going to do about 20 minutes here, and then what we'll do is we'll spin back to your piece from the beginning.
But first,
you have a little time here. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. Just happy to be in the place here.
I'm taking pictures.
I saw you taking pictures.
Yeah.
Us too.
This is great. Have they eaten yet? Your food?
Oh, they ate all the chicken.
They ate all the chicken? Okay, good. I don't eat chicken, so I'm okay with that.
Take that.
All right, good. So I just want to go through the same conversation we had on the air.
Back on the air?
Not yet. They'll tell me when.
Oh, I thought we were back on the air.
No, I'm just, they're telling you.
Yeah.
Oh, they're telling me to go. All right, let me have your attention. Welcome back to Today with Dr. K. I'm Dr. K. Wise Whitehead, live on location at Bear Studios.
Yeah.
Yes, it is exciting to be here, folks. If you did not get a ticket, you have missed out on an amazing in-person conversation. But there's more happening 11 a.m. tomorrow on this campus. Dr. Ayanna Llewellyn will be here, so if you have an opportunity, come up for that. Tomorrow at 5 p.m. at Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys, there's a rally. Stop the close. Keep the one school open that's really focused on educating our boys. That's on the chopping block. That's at 5 p.m. tomorrow. And then on Saturday is the No Kings Rally. The No Kings Rally starts down at War Memorial Plaza. Join me on one of the speakers. So I'll be there. Hopefully, if I make it back from Florida one time, we'll see. Something about Florida where I don't want to go. Dean Wickham. Speaking of Florida.
Yeah.
And so I'm just excited to have you here. You were on the show with me earlier this week, talking through the entire review with you.
I got in a lot of trouble.
You got in a lot of trouble for sharing everything.
People can't. Where's my bag?
The bag
Where's
is
my
amazing.
bag? Where's my bag? So look. So I want to say now, we only have one. We have one bag with our black Mount Rushmore on the cover. It's a tote bag. And we have one copy of the book on a flash drive. Now, I know I saw some of you come in with canes. I'm sure they will now be used as clubs as you fight over this one copy.
And that's exciting because on the cover, you have Mount Rushmore. Our Mount Rushmore.
We call it Blackmore.
Blackmore. Okay, Blackmore. So who is on Blackmore? Now I know, of course, Barack Obama is on Blackmore, but who? Or Rosa Parks is on Blackmore.
Rosa Parks is on there.
But who else is there? And I'll take Frederick Douglass out too, because there are two people that people don't really know about.
So even on our black Mount Rushmore, Frederick Douglass doesn't smile.
Yeah, he never does. He
never smiles.
He smiled when well, I was gonna say when the ladies saw him. They said he was a big flirt, but that's a whole nother conversation. But he is not smiling on Blackmore. Well, but you have two other people.
Well, you know, the brothers of the movement have been players. You know, they say this SNCC and Black Panther, a lot of brothers. No, go back to Frederick Douglass.
Frederick Douglass.
Please don't skip over W.E.B. Du Bois.
Du Bois.
Player.
Booker T. Washington. Carter G. Woodson. Don't get me started about the players. That's a different conversation, which I love to have.
But on our black Mount Rushmore, to your question, We have Robert Hemmings.
Who we just talked about.
We have Robert Hemmings
Yes.
on there. We have Frederick Douglass.
Yep. Second one.
We have Jessie Fawcett.
Talk about her.
I talked about her earlier. I'll talk about her again.
Yes.
I cannot say enough about Jessie Fawcett, the godmother of the Harlem Renaissance.
Yes, she was.
And you have to look at her history. This is an amazing history of this woman. You read about her. It will make you so proud, especially to be a black woman in America.
Yes.
1919. And women were struggling in all aspects of life in this country. And she came to New York City from Washington, D.C. She was kind of young because Du Bois liked them young. but he also liked them legal. Just to make the point, he liked them legal. Okay. And he brought her to New York and made her the literary editor
of the Crisis.
And the Crisis was a nice publication before she got there.
It was a major publication.
But it was just a publication that talked about the struggle. And she made it so much more.
Made it more artistically
And so when people talk
focused.
about the Harlem Renaissance, Dr. K, they so easily go past her time, 1919, 1926. They start with, for instance, they start talking about white editors who published black authors, and they gave them such a great opportunity. And this was a break in the Jim Crow era. They discovered them in reading Crisis, because Jessie Fawcett opened up the door. She opened up the door for Langston Hughes.
Yes, she did.
Zora Neale Hurston. Jean Tomer.
Yes.
And I like to talk about Conte Cullen.
Yes.
I did my little Conte Cullen piece earlier. Yet through a marvel at this curious thing. But you know what else he did? He wrote a poem about Baltimore.
Yes, and people have talked about that.
Yes. You got it. Very short, but you got to read it. Just read it. It's searing. Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that in terms of her work. And then, of course, after Jessie Fawcett, we have Rosa Parks and then Barack Obama kind of running the gambit, because so many people, and I will take Barack Obama out of it, but there's so many people that could be on Blackmore. If you're going to put Blackmore together, Barack Obama is a given.
So if you read the publication, and I hope you will, because we're going to make sure that everyone has a copy, you'll read about people. U.B. Blake is in our publication.
Yes.
And we talk about, in one of the pieces, we talk about how U.B. Blake was a part of a musical revolution that took place in America that opened up opportunities for people of color.
Yes.
He had the first play on Broadway in which black folks were allowed to go into audiences in the orchestra section with white people.
Yes. Yes.
U.B. Blake and Noble Systems. They're the ones who open up those opportunities. So it's a fascinating piece to talk about that. I fell in love with so many people in this book, and so many instances, so many episodes. We tell the story in one episode, in one of the chapters, about the celebration of the anniversary of the America's founding. It would have been in 1926 in Philadelphia.
Yes. That's the 80-foot.
Yes.
Yes.
And in that year, they decided, okay, we did this 50 years earlier. We're going to do it again. And this year, how do we make it even more special? So they decided to create a replica of the Liberty Bell. They built an 80-foot tall replica of the Liberty Bell, and they built it across Broad Street. Y'all been to Philly?
Yes. It was huge.
You couldn't go down Broad Street unless you drove under this 80-foot tall Liberty Bell. All the money they spent on this Liberty Bell, it had thousands of lights. I think in fact, it had 12,000 light bulbs. And that was no small feat in those days, to find the power to turn it on.
And that money, yes.
And so in this celebration, you think, okay, well, this is going to be great, because it's a Liberty Bell. We're talking about liberty. It's after the World War I. It's after the Red Summer of 1919. Things must be getting better. Well, they had, as a part of the celebration, a plan to have a 5,000-member choir. So we're going to begin this whole celebration with a 5,000-member choir. They practiced for months. They were given all of the songs to practice. They were given places to practice. They had locations. They would go to these locations at a set time to practice singing these songs, with one exception. No blacks were allowed to come to the practice sessions. They were going to have an interracial choir,
Yep.
but the blacks could not come. They gave the black folks the music
And told them to figure it out.
and told them to go figure out where you practice, and you can come back on the first day and sing along with the rest of us. So that was a part of it. The other part of it was Philadelphia had a very active, very proud black family, a black community.
It was.
And in this black community, they said, well, we want to have a significant part of this celebration. Where are we on opening day? And they beat up on the mayor so long that about 7 days before the opening moment, the mayor gave in and said, I'm going to invite a black person to come
Black person.
and give a speech. And that black person was you talked about him, the president of Sleeping Car Porters.
Yes.
A. Philip Randolph.
A. Philip Randolph.
And at the time, by the way, A. Philip Randolph was not well known for what we know him now as having been the head of the first Black Negro Union.
Yeah.
It had happened. He'd been in that job for about 6 months, but he was famous at that point for being an editor of a magazine called The Messenger.
Yep.
So they invited him, and the letter said something to this effect from the mayor. The mayor was the chairman of the committee, and he said, "It's a great honor to invite you to be the Negro representative, the representative of Negroes across the world, to give an opening address at the opening of this big exhibition they call the World's Fair." And having said that, they gave him the last speaking spot on the program. They had standing room only when the program began. And after they went through speaker after speaker after speaker after speaker, about the time they was ready to turn off those lights, they let A. Philip Randolph come up and speak. Most people had never heard his words. Papers didn't report what he said, but we do in our publication.
Yes, I love that. I love that. I actually enjoyed that part of it because it connected the A. Philip Randolph that I know, not just from Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, but his work with the March on Washington.
Yes.
To think that his work stretched all the way up to 63, and the work he did to be able to have that moment. So
and you learn how he was lost to history.
Yes,
because we think about the Civil Rights Movement wasn't about him. It was about King, and it was about
the Young Lions. That's
yes,
what it was about.
But A. Philip Randolph was there.
Yeah, he was there
for decades,
organizing behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I want to make a note because I want to get into talking about your piece, but there are 5 sections. And so I'm just going to name them and just have you say a word or two about them. So section 1, which we had Dr. Powell talk about, 1776 to 1825, a government for white men only, which is really getting into and interrogating what does the notion mean that all men, and I will always add, and women, are created equal, but the ways in which they talked about freedom while keeping us enslaved.
It was so important. I mentioned earlier that one of my assignments as the editor of the publication was to write the headlines for each piece. And I read Dr. Powell's piece, and I thought, wow. To me, it just screamed, she's writing about a government for white men only. In fact, I toyed with the idea of saying initially, America, 1776, an apartheid state. I started that was my first shot at a headline. I thought, I might go too far. So I'll back up a little bit. But the point, I think, is real. They created, if you read that document and you understand who was excluded, not just black men, all women.
Yes.
Black women and white women.
Yep.
It was a government for white men only.
Yes, it was.
And that's what they created. And in fact, I did some research to look at all of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, and only 2 of the signers did not own slaves. All the rest of them, all those people, I think it was two from every state, sometimes 3, every one of them were slaveholders.
And I always mention Mary Catherine Goddard, the one woman because she ran, of course, the press, which leads us into thinking about the press. She was a white woman, but the birth of the black press, because the second section, 1826 to 1875, who spoke for us.
Yeah.
In that period, you have the Civil War, you have the nadir of Black history getting ready to begin. Talk a bit about that section.
So who spoke for us? We know dramatically we talk about the creation of the first black newspaper, Freedom's Journal, 1826.
Yep.
But we also know Frederick Douglass had several newspapers. We know that the abolitionists, and you cannot miss this point. I argue about this all the time. The reason why we celebrate Juneteenth today is not just that I say it's a celebration of ignorance, because nobody was ever freed on Juneteenth.
That all the time.
It drives me crazy.
Every year he calls my show going, why are you doing Juneteenth?
Yeah, nobody was freed in Juneteenth
at all
of 1865. No, but not even in Texas. People talk about, well, you know, in Galveston, Texas.
No.
I called Dr. Mary Frances Berry, one of the great living black historians, and she chuckled. She said, you know, that I don't think there was a single slave who was allowed to go to the port when the general pulled up to say, y'all know it's an Emancipation Proclamation. Not a single. And then she said to me, she said, but when the word got out, the rivers of Texas ran red with the blood of blacks who walked off the plantation. So that Juneteenth thing is just a big hoax. I think it's so important. I get worked up about that.
It gets worked up. Every year we do a show about it.
And the other reason why I get worked up about it is that it gives credit to the wrong people. It was the abolitionists, the black abolitionists who fought, who agitated, who pushed the Republican-led Congress, who pushed Abraham Lincoln to pass the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendment to the Constitution, and they get no credit. And they are the ones who brought about the 13th Amendment, which was ratified on December 6, 1865. That's the day that slavery ended. I call it Freedom Day. We ought to all call it Freedom Day. But you see, if you say that it was that day, in fact, all the official documents in the government says it was that day. But if we say it was that day, we also have to acknowledge that we were freed through the efforts of our own people who agitated. If you say it was Juneteenth, it was the white general who came off the boat on his horse.
Y'all free now.
And said, y'all free. Y'all's free. Y'all's free.
Which leads to section 3. 1876 to 1925, Jim Crow, Black Codes, and Baseball, which is your section.
Yeah, listen, I began by talking about a Union Army general on the night of the election in 1876. He was a former Democrat, served in the Union Army, became a Republican, and got a commission, became a commanding officer of one of the units at Gettysburg, was quite a dashing and daring guy. Older guy, had a little young wife. He had a nice little young wife. Went off to battle, and in the middle of the battle, a cannonball blew off his leg. He's still riding on his horse. They said, they tell the story, he never got off the horse. The leg did. And that leg, by the way, that leg, the United States government still has that leg. Dean, what's the hospital in D.C., the military hospital? Walter Reed. That leg is now in a museum at Walter Reed.
And formaldehyde.
Yeah, so it's held there. So he loses his leg, and he goes off. The war ends. They make him the ambassador to Spain. He goes off to. Oh, I missed a part. Because you know, Dr. Powell got me all confused. She got about the Star Spangled Banner. So don't get me started. So, Dr. Powell, who wrote the Star Spangled Banner? I thought y'all told her.
We did tell her.
Tell her again.
Francis Scott Key, come on.
Okay, they're building that big bridge now. So check this out, Dr. Powell. Francis Scott Key had a son. And Francis Scott Key's son became the district attorney in Washington, D.C. in the 1870s. He was a dashing kind of guy. In those days, Washington wasn't much of a place to hang out in. No. And so when the congressmen would come to Washington during the session and they go off to do the business, there were gentlemen whose job it was to entertain the ladies. Yes. And to take them to soirees and other kind of social events. And Scott Key's son, the district attorney, was one of those not so gentlemen. And he started having an affair with the wife of this congressman, this former general, who got wind of it, didn't like the idea, and so one day stuffed in his pants about 6 pistols, because those were single-shot pistols. And he went to a park where the liaison was supposed to occur, and his wife stood on the balcony and waved her little handkerchief, and the guy saw it, Key saw it, and was ready to make his move when this guy comes running with his pistol. Bam, bam. He had to shoot him and just drop him. Bam, bam. And he shot Francis Scott Key's son to death. Yes, he did. He was tried for murder. No, bro, he turned himself in right away. He went straight to the Attorney General of the United States and turned himself in, was tried for murder. He is the first person to be tried for murder in the United States who was acquitted because he claimed insanity.
When it's saying love.
Okay, this story hasn't ended yet. The trial is over. He stands on top of the table. Everybody's cheering him because nobody liked Francis Scott Key's son because he was messing with everybody's lady. But this guy makes the mistake of getting off the table and grabbing his wife and reuniting with her. Now all the people who had rallied around him are upset. So he's now, so the Republicans sent him off to Spain to be the ambassador. And he comes back only for the night of this election. And so he goes to the polls that night to the Republican headquarters and finds out that the Republicans are about to lose the presidency for the first time since Abraham Lincoln had been elected in 1860. 16 years later now, 1876. And so he realizes it's a close election. There are 4 states that haven't reported their results. And so he says to the Republican Party chairman, well, we can still win this thing. I guess, I don't know, it's not looking good. He says, in those Republican states, Reconstruction is still in place. Reconstruction means in those states that the governors of those states have been appointed by the president under the Reconstruction government structure. Tell the governors to hold on to the state for the Republican Party. So we're going to send telegrams to do that. So they go to the telegraph office, and while he's rushing to the telegraph office, he's joined by the editor of the New York Times, who hates the South, had been a war prisoner during the Confederacy, during the Civil War, and they go off together to the telegraph office to send out these telegrams to tell these people to steal the election. And he says, charge it to the Republican Party, and the clerk says they don't have an account here. And so the editor of the New York Times leans forward and says, well, then charge it to the New York Times.
There you go.
So the New York Times, a little historical footnote, paid for the telegrams that told these Republican governors to steal the election.
To steal the election.
So I love telling that story and all that it meant, but also how it ended Reconstruction. Yeah. And plunged this nation into a century of Jim Crow, Jim Crow laws.
So now 1926 to 1975 is a white man's war, a black man's fight that we talked about, because I want to push us ahead to the last section. 1976 to 2026, battling to belong in a nation built on our backs.
So can we show, we have 2 of our contributors who are not here. One of them is Tanya Weathersby, who wrote this piece. Tanya is now a former columnist who's now a endowed professor at the University of Memphis. And I'd rather show, we got a 4-minute piece in which she talks about her contribution.
So we're going to show that, and then we'll have a chance to talk to Michael Cotman very quickly before the show ends about his book and the clip that we saw. So let's take a listen to it.
Yes. Agreeing to join us here virtually at Morgan State University for our observation of the 250th anniversary. We've had a lot to say about it in our book, and you contributed.
Well, first of all, let me say I wish I could be at Morgan State. I really wish I could be there so I could make you go buy me some crabs. But but it is what it is. We had midterms here, and I was just a busy time, and I just couldn't break away. But anyhow, when you first asked me to do this assignment, the first thing that popped into my head that I led with was Richard Pryor. That year, a lot of people don't remember this. I mean, I'm old. I'm back in 19 mumbly mumbly, as I always tell my students. But he had this album called Bicentennial Nigga. And basically, it helped prompt a lot of conversation during that time about whether or not Black people should be celebrating the bicentennial. And he did this whole monologue about, well, it was such a good time. You put my, he used a slave dialogue. You sit my children over there, my wife under yonder. I can't wait to have another 200 years of this. I talk about how Colin Powell became the first Black head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, even under Republican president, under under the first Bush. Then later on, he became Secretary of State. And now we've come from that to we have this Pete Hegseth, who they end up firing the Black Joint Chief of Staff because now they managed to turn civil rights on his head.
Black politics seemed to dominate the period that you covered. Can you talk more about that? You mentioned Jesse Jackson. Twice he ran for president. He didn't win either time, but he reshaped in many ways the body politics of this nation.
When he did what he did in '84, and he ran for president in '84, and he ran for '88, it did shape the body politic because that gave people, particularly Black people, the idea that someone Black could run and win because he won a number of primaries, if I'm not mistaken, in the South during that time. It made people understand the possibility was there, that, that's not unusual thing. It became a normal thing for someone in Black to actually run for president and make some progress in getting votes and winning and, getting close to it. And then we saw, 10 years later, Barack Obama. That was 88. No, 20 years later, then you had Barack Obama.
Can you only imagine
Mm.
what the so-called founding fathers thought of that moment? They said all.
Well, you asked me. Yeah.
Jefferson said all men are created equal.
Created equal. Yeah. He should
We
be
know
saying.
he didn't mean Black.
He didn't mean Black people. Some of them probably roll it in their grave and everything. Somebody had made a joke one time. I guess it was the guy who was the involved the energy secretary at Barack Obama's State of the Union. And he's had a long beard and stuff. Somebody said, "Yeah, that's a founding father who transported himself through time to see if this black president stuff was for real." They had a good idea. Democracy was a good idea, but we know they were flawed and they didn't mean it for everybody. And and now, you got people just outright saying forget democracy, because if you really want to live up to democratic ideas, you have to include everybody, and they don't want that to happen.
Tanya Weathersby, an endowed professor of journalism at the University of Memphis.
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
Hey, you're welcome. Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Michael Cotman at this point.
Michael Cotman's come on up. While he's coming up and getting settled, I just want to ask you, as we look at America at 250, is there something in particular, as people go through the text, those who are here are able to do it and actually spend some time, you'll be able to watch this later. I want to find out, is there one particular section? I mean, imagine if people kind of doing a quick read through. You're like, you know what, if you don't look at anything else, like dig down into this to really help you understand what's happening now in this country.
I can't.
You can't.
And the reason why I can't is because it all contributes
You got to read the whole thing.
to where we are.
I love it.
We are a people who have struggled in this nation from can't see to can't see.
Yeah.
And it was true when we were slaves working in the fields, but it's true today as we struggle to get through this existence that we have, where Our culture is under attack. Our history is under attack. They're challenging even our right to compete fairly when they strip us of opportunities to access diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. We need to understand, as they say, they used to say during the struggle, "A luta continua."
Yep.
The struggle continues.
One of the last thing I want to say about this is that I was breaking this down to some students, and I asked them in 50-year increments, write down key things that happened during this time period. And it was very saddening to watch as students they're unable to think about any activities other than a couple things from the civil rights movement, a couple things they pull out here, but they could not go back farther than that. So this is a great teaching tool to help people start to make sense of how Black history is American history.
We've not had a chance in a real way, an expansive way to tell our story. And I don't suggest that this one publication does that, but it's an effort in that direction.
It's a good start.
And we have to contribute to it, and we have to encourage people to read. If you read this book, you will find leads that will take you to other people, to other times, to other places, and you can share this with your friends, with your family. This is our story, and it's an amazing story. I heard Dr. Powell use the word resilience, and if there's one word that I can use that I can steal from from her, it is this is all about resilience, a resilient people. And so many. I talk in my piece about slave revolts. There were a lot. There were a lot of slave revolts. That famous, not so famous rapper said, "We didn't struggle." He's wrong.
He's wrong.
He's wrong.
We fought back.
We struggled. We fought back. There were. If you read about just the period of slave revolts in Virginia alone, and they had some good plans.
Yeah.
But they also had some, all of my skin folk ain't my
kinfolk. There's always somebody to turn you in.
And so they got turned in every time by brother. But they had some great plans, and they sometimes got weather took them. One time in one of the big slave revolts, they had over 1,000 slaves ready to attack, and there was a thunderstorm, and everybody ran back to their plantations with the idea we'd come back the next day. And one of those brothers got back and looked at Master and said, I'm afraid they're gonna hurt Master. And so he said that he turned them in because he was afraid that they might hurt his master. But the struggle is this is real.
Yeah.
This is real for us, and we need to understand it.
I like this idea of breadcrumbs. And I want to actually speak with Michael Cotman before we wrap up, because we showed a small piece about the Clotilda. And I know you've been going back in the water to get retrained to go back down. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that story fits into this larger narrative of our history here?
Sure. So I started scuba diving about 30 years ago. I got in the water just to go see some fish. Right? I get a call one day from some marine archaeologists, right, from Key West, Florida. Said, we think we found a slave ship. And we know that you belong to the group called the National Association of Black Scuba Divers, which, yes, we have more than 5 members. And they called us and said, this is a part of your history. It's a part of our history. But more importantly, since you are Black underwater explorers, this may resonate with you. And so I got on the plane and went down to Key West, Florida. And as you saw in the clip, I talked about books, right, growing up. And my mother and father used to send me little notes during the day. Come home, when you come home from school, we've got a book report for you. So I would leave school to come home to school, right, to do more work, right? I didn't appreciate it then, but I appreciate it now. But my father took me to the library and said, look, here's some books about African-American history, about slavery. And here are places around the world that you may be interested in life. And so he said, here's Africa, and here's Nigeria, and Morocco, and maybe these are places you want to go. So I get down to Florida, and one little known story here, when this ship was found, when the shackles were found, there were 19 divers in the water. Only one was Black. His name was Mo Molinar, right? Panamanian, Black. he found a mound of shackles. And what I say is he didn't find them. I think he was guided to them because he found this mound of shackles, 80 pair, the largest collection of slave ship shackles ever found on one site, including 14 pair for 14 children aboard the Henrietta Marie. And what a lot of people don't know and remember and think about is that they were children aboard these ships. You know, man's inhumanity to man. Children, you know, bound by these shackles. And they fit in the palm of your hand. They're 2 pounds. So when Mo found those, he took those to a warehouse where they sat for 20 years because nobody knew what they were, right? And that's when we got the phone call. So that phone call led me to Florida and led me on this journey, right?
So thank you so much. I know that you're getting ready to go for an anniversary dive. I want to have you mention that very quickly.
Absolutely.
And then we do want to open up for some questions if we have some from the audience, and then hear a word, of course, from our reigning dean, Jackie Jones, before we wrap.
So I'll spin this forward because I'm talking about the past, but moving forward, we're going to do a commemorative research dive on the Henrietta Marie in May, where I'm taking 2 Morgan State University students, right? So we can teach our students about the past, teach them to tell our stories. If we don't tell our stories, who will? Right? We have to remember to do this. My book, I want to say, has been banned in 10 states, right? And as I said in that clip, so we're going to go back to Key West, Florida, take our students there, and we're going to make history. So for the first time ever, we are going to be underwater, and we are going to be interviewed underwater by a young lady named Dr. Ayanna Flewellen, who I'm going to pick up in just a few minutes, flying in from San Francisco.
To speak.
Right, and she's a anthropologist in Stanford University, and she's going to interview us on the wreck of the slave ship. So the first time Black people will be interviewed on the wreck of the slave ship to talk about our past and our connections. And so I learned a lot of it through books, right, about the Henrietta Marie, but I never learned anything until I was underwater on that wreck, running my hands through the sand and pulling up trade beads that were used to trade for our people 300 years ago. And you can pound your hand on the wreck of the slave ship 300 years later, and you'll break your hand before you break the ship. You know why? Because we're resilient. That ship is resilient. Let me tell you another thing real quick. This is a place where the Gulf of Mexico meets the Atlantic Ocean. It's rough. There's a lot of current. People ask me all the time, why is it so rough? I call it spiritual turbulence, right? Because this is where our people went down, right? But look what's come out of this. I mean, resiliency, survival, accomplishments, right? These people, right, our African people brought everything to this world. Mathematics, science, culture, food, education, music, right? So we're living this. I'm sorry. I love
it. I'm very excited about it.
I'm ready to get in the water right now.
I know, right now.
I'm my wetsuit.
I can't swim and I'm jumping.
I'm gonna take this young man with me. I'm gonna get him some water wings. Get in the water.
I don't know. Daryl, can you swim? Daryl, take me.
One last thing. I'm doing this in large part because this man here, Dean Emeritus Wickham, they call him. Some people call him Dwayne. I call him my big brother. He has been my mentor for more than 30 years plus. And I'm writing books and I'm writing and telling our stories in large part because I've been following his footsteps. And I'm just
I love that.
Last thing. Well, when I wrote the book, The Henrietta Marie, my agent tried to get me on the Oprah Winfrey show for a year. Wouldn't do it. Just, I don't want to hear anymore about something. So we changed the title of the book for the paperback. Instead of The Wreck of the Henrietta Marie, we called it Spirit Dive, right? Because I thought this would resonate with our people. A month after we changed the title, we get a call from Oprah Winfrey. Come on the show, didn't even know it was the same book, right? But she was moved by this because I call this a spirit dive, right? It's a dive of the spirit, not only for archaeology, not only for research, but for the spirit, right?
Love that. All right, so folks,
thank you.
What a wonderful way to move into our question and answer. We have Dean Wickham here, Dr. Powell still here. I don't know if Benjamin Davis is still with us. I think he may have stepped out. So we want to open it up if you have any questions before Dean Jackie Jones comes up to close us out.
We're streaming.
And additionally, we are live streaming on YouTube. So welcome to all of our YouTubers who are watching. And the channel is MSU Center for New Media. So we're excited that this is going out around the world. Are there any questions that we have for people? Yes, if you can also speak up and I will restate your question as well. Professor Davis, can you come back up and join us? Okay. All right. Come on up. One of your students has asked a question. I'm not going to say how that's tied together. We'll just invite your question on.
Spoke about like social how do you feel like that changed, and how do you feel like it diverged from like people in the past who didn't have those outlets and weren't like able to get their thoughts out there?
So if you can restate the question, we're going to get him mic'd up. But he's talking about the fact that he was talking about arts and culture at that time. How has that changed? How has this diverged? You can pull that together for us.
It was a carryover, actually. A torch was actually passed from Billie Holiday, U.B. Blake. They were creating music that was protest music, Billie Holiday in particular. Marvin Gaye basically picked up the torch. He had a bigger audience because of the way media became more broadcast, more telecommunication in the mass communication sense. I think, to coin Michael's term, the spirit was still there. You just had a better way of getting the message out that we are here and our story is not going to be suppressed one way or the other. And also the story happened to be popular. So you wouldn't want to suppress a popular story. African Americans were not going to suppress a popular story that the world liked. The world liked We Shall Overcome. They picked up that language. The world liked a lot of our athletes. They liked a lot of the things that we did. And so people in entertainment in particular decided to make sure that they continued that on. It was a win-win for us. It was a lose-lose for the people who opposed us. It's lose-lose for the people who will oppose us in the future as well. That's the ongoing message in terms of what African Americans are producing with their entertainment and with their literature, with all intellectual aspects of what we do. It's like you're a lose-lose, we're a win-win, and the world continues to be attracted to whatever we put out.
Do we have? Thank you so much for that. Is there another question from the floor?
I have
Yes.
Dr. P, I'm Timothy. I call this show a lot.
Thank you for calling and thank you for listening.
Beautiful show. And your callers are some of the brightest people on the planet.
Thank you so much.
I just want to make a statement. You said something about the kids that you were engaging with and they didn't know any of our history. We as parents, we failed them on that.
Yes.
And I look back, I am a father of three, all educated college, and I missed the boat a lot. But since then, I have really engaged back into our culture. I just want to leave us all with this thought. We are great people before slavery. Our history did not start at slavery.
It did not.
The Bible calls us the Israelites. We are the children of the Exodus who fled from Egypt into Africa and sold to the Americans. They sold Israelites. So we are greater than where we always focus on, and our history goes way beyond that.
No, thank
Dr.
you so
K,
much.
before
Yes.
we go to another question, because it spurred in my thinking something that Nicole Hannah-Jones said to us. And if we can play that clip from Nicole Hannah-Jones.
Okay.
The book is a 1619 project. Its creator, Nicole Hannah-Jones. Nicole Hannah-Jones, welcome. The 1619 project, in essence, is your flag.
Yeah.
The flag that you raised.
Yeah, it's funny, Dwayne, because the stated reasons that the book has been banned is they say it's unpatriotic. But accidentally, this ended up being the most patriotic thing I've ever written, because by the end of the essay, I'm actually arguing that no one is more American than Black Americans, that we have built a country that everyone, like you think about, when you imagine American culture, you think about us. Fashion, language, music, film, literature, and yet we were made to feel we didn't have full rights of citizenship. And so my essay is actually arguing that because of that, We are the most American. We are the greatest democratizing force in the history of the United States. I think what is most critical to understand is ultimately the 1619 Project is a work of memory. What I mean by a work of memory is everything that happened in the book happened. So what we're calling history is actually memory. It's actually what people in power have decided they're going to teach us, who they're going to memorialize with their monuments, who they're going to name their schools after, who you're going to see when you go in a museum or art gallery, and what they're going to leave out. I've been writing about racism, racial inequality my entire career, more than 20 years. I was never attacked by presidents, by congressmen, by legislatures, by school boards until I wrote about our national memory, until I wrote about history and argued that the history we've been taught is not the accurate history of our country.
At its root, the banning of books is about controlling the narrative, about erasing the memory of people and events that those in positions of power want to suppress. The 1619 Project is one example. The wreck of the Henrietta Marie is another.
And so, as you were speaking, I was thinking that our memory, even as we try to tell our people about our history, our memory seldom goes back farther than 1619. You know, and so we don't talk about religion among our people that existed before we were enslaved, which I would argue was neither Islam or Christianity. There were indigenous religions to our people in Africa. We don't know anything about that. And we have no understanding of how those great civilizations in Africa came into being, how they existed for centuries, and what their wonderful accomplishments were, because our memory only goes back to 1619. We got here the year before the Mayflower, and we take great pride in that.
I'm glad you said that. And yeah, go ahead.
Your response to that. Watch this. This is going to blow your mind. We've had that history. It's the greatest book sold year after year. That's on the New York Times bestseller year after year. We have it on our tables in our home.
The Holy Bible.
And we
The Bible.
put it up on Sunday. That's the history book. It covers what you just mentioned. It covers from Egypt, from Genesis, all the way to how we got to the land here. Deuteronomy 28 will blow your everlasting mind. Of the slavery of
I got that, and I'm not going to get in an argument with you.
Okay, no.
But I'm just going to say that's the Christian history.
Not Christian.
Okay, so I'm just going to step in here. I'm just going to step in here. Because what I want to do, I'm just going to step in because what I want to do, even though I love these conversations, and we have them all the time on Today with Dr. K. Today, we are here to talk about America at 250, and I think it's best for us to stay focused on that because this is an incredible moment to talk about the release of something that is unique to Morgan. We are at the jewel, not just the Baltimore City of America. We are writing the stories. We are telling the history. We are leading the way. And if we don't do anything else today, I want us to walk away with that. Like we are saying, you cannot tell the history of America if you don't talk about Black folks in America. You can't talk about struggle if you don't talk about how we struggle. You can't talk about resilience if you don't talk about how we resisted and what resilience looks like. If you don't talk about 1619, I always add, because I'm from South Carolina, I go back to 1526, and those who came to my Saturday school, when I said the first plantation was in 1526 outside of Spanish South Carolina that lasted 2 months because the enslaved Black folks did what? They burned it to the ground. Because sometimes you got to burn stuff down so they can remember that you have resistance in your spirit. So we will take one more question, not about the Bible, and then we'll have Dean Jackie Jones come up. Go ahead.
But the subject here today
is us telling our own story.
Mm-hmm.
And how important that is. My wife and I, for the last 15 years, been working on a documentary about Gwynn Oak Amusement Park.
All right.
Nice.
We celebrated the 50th anniversary in 2013, had the 60th anniversary, and it's a continuing project. And with that project, what's going on today, or what's going on now, is that a big storm came through called Agnes. Went through and destroyed the park. The only thing that survived was the merry-go-round.
Yeah.
When you say telling your own story,
Yes.
we have been working with telling the story about the park and the merry-go-round.
I love that.
This year in April, the merry-go-round is going to be revealed again
Really?
at the mall
Wow.
on Washington.
I love that. I love that.
Because that merry-go-round was extremely important. We couldn't ride it at the time.
Yeah.
But when it was desegregated, we could ride it.
I love that.
That was the only thing that survived the park.
Yeah.
And now you will be able to ride on it again. It's all in one. And that's how this journey about this documentary has taken us forward. So
And Pete, you may recall that it's the significance of that merry-go-round being taken to the mall on Washington is that the day that the Gwynn Oak Park was integrated was the day of the March on Washington.
Yes.
Decided to go to the march.
That's right.
I love that.
That's how, and we are trying to get our story about it. Other folks are kind of
But our story.
Yeah.
It's been our mission to tell our version of that story.
Dr. Cake, I think
Extremely important that we put our spin,
Yes.
our piece,
Yes.
not writing that
Yes.
carousel that hasn't been told. So I just want to let you know how important this. And my wife went to Morgan. I went, but I didn't make it. But this guy was going to is way more important.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
This existed when we was here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Telling our story.
Thank you. So I'm going to go to Michael Cotman for one final comment. I'll have the Dean say his final comment, and then Dean Jackie Jones is going to. Dean Emeritus is going to say his final comment, and then Dean Jackie Jones is going to come up. Michael Cotman?
I just want to make one
Not
quick.
Michael Cotman, you're Benjamin Davis.
That's okay. Long day.
Hey, that's why you look around like, Michael, who? No, you, Benjamin Davis.
I just, in terms of memory, I just want to make a message to younger people who may not be catching on to all of this, but the importance of it, if you can think of your digital device, your laptop, your smartphone, what you see face value, you deal with every day. But what the 1619 Project and this 250th anniversary is saying is there's a memory within your device. And we need you to open it up, to look in there. You'll find things there that you didn't know existed. But all of this is all about opening a memory right in front of you.
Thank you for that. Dean Emeritus Dwayne Wickham?
Listen, this is just a wonderful moment for me. As an editor of a book, we publish, we toil over it, we read it, we write the pieces, we edit the pieces, and we hope someone will read it. And to have you here today, we know that you're noticing what we've created, that our voices are being heard, and it will empower us to take on that next book. We do one every 3 months. Each of you will not only get a book, but if we have, and I assume we do, your email addresses, you will be placed on a listserv that will treat you like a subscriber. And so every time a new book comes out, you will get that book automatically. It goes out on the day that we hit that button, and Osiatin Iyari, who's our research director and our associate producer, is in charge of that. And it goes out to literally hundreds of people at a moment's just by hitting that button. And we want you to see that book and to go back and read the back issues. You have to read the issue we did on the 10 black women who ran for president of the United States. We're 10. And we tell those stories. And so many other, the issue that we did on the migration of blacks from the United States, running from this country when that rascal was elected.
So I want to, you could just give some applause for Dean Jackie Jones to come on up and close us out.
Okay.
I just want to get her mic'd up.
But you put no. I'm not loud enough.
Y'all like these colors? Look at the, check it out. Dean is
Courtesy
fly.
of Mr. Yare, who came back from Nigeria and brought me this. So, award for you.
Very nice.
I'm just so proud to be dean of the school. I am so proud of the work that we produce, that what we've built here since 2012, but we officially became a school in 2013. We have done so much. We have brought so many people here to share their knowledge. We have an outstanding faculty. We have so many and increasingly young faculty who are so accomplished and who really give the students the message of the importance of writing and research and telling our stories and promoting our stories. All of those things work together. We have 3 departments in our school, but we all work as one. Students learn across all the platforms, and they're going to be the next generation of storytellers. And to be a part of that, to work with Dwayne Wickham, whom I knew pretty well when I got here, but who has become my brother in arms. And together, I think we put together a mighty fine product. And I can't be happier and can't imagine where else I would have gone to do what I do. So for that alone, this evening is such a representative of that. And when I watch the work that people have done, I've known Michael Cotman for years. I was his editor at 2 newspapers. And to see the work that he has produced and how moving his work has been, and the scholarship, whether you are a staff member, a tenured faculty member, a professor of practice, everybody in this school does some research. They write, they produce, we do creative works, and I think that we are becoming one of the top journalism schools, period. Not the top HBCU with a journalism program, but a top HBCU. And we have increasingly partnered with other schools that want to work with West Virginia University, Brigham Young University, Penn State University, Howard,
Arizona,
Maryland, University of Maryland, George Washington University. I've been approached by deans from multiple schools who want to know if they can come up with a program. In fact, I got an email today from the Freedom Forum about a new program on the freedom of speech they want to do with us starting in the fall. So those opportunities are coming because they know the quality of the work that we produce. And so when your children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews are deciding where they want to go to school, especially if they have an interest in journalism, strategic communication, production, they ought to be looking at Morgan State University. And they should be proud to be a part of a program like ours. I could go on and on, but I'll stop myself. But I think that the culmination of the work that is in this issue of the Morgan Global Journalism Review really puts a fine point on what we've been able to do and where we can go from here.
All right, thank you so much, Dean Jackie Jones. Thank you to Dean Emeritus Dwayne Wickham. We want to send out a thanks to the writers that are in the room, Dr. Powell and Benjamin Davis. Thank you so much. And thank all of you for joining us here today. It's been an absolute pleasure to host this. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. You are wonderful.
Thank you, sir.
You're wonderful.
Get my bag.
Thank you so much.
And hold on tight.